The wicked scum of Kamurocho can often find themselves back on their feet and ready to do harm once again. Or perhaps they'll do something more peculiar, like turning a new leaf years later. Now, the three guys I'm talking about today may not quite fall under redeemed villains, so to speak, but instead ones that manage to crawl their way back into the series and spotlights unrelated to the main story. Instead, you gotta go out of your way to find these guys through exploring the open streets, dingy alleyways, rooftops, sewers, you name it. And I'm not alone today. I have a special guest to help me explore the tales of these three ex-foes. You see, I found Tanimura.
You've got to help me. I'm being held hostage by this sick maniac.
That's just maniac to you. I'm feeling better. These are the Tanimura files, and this is the hidden storylines of villains in Like a Dragon.
Well, there's still word out there that Arase Kazuto is still gunning people down, but only those that have harassed others. Perhaps a change of heart, maybe?
Maybe Arase finally tried Thai food.
That'll do it.
Arase first made himself known during the 10 billion yen incident in late 2005, where he was a dual pistol-wielding enforcer for the Nishikiyama family. He's known for his bright red suit and sunglasses, dressed like a diva version of the Amon clan.
Don't bring up the Amon clan. I still get emails from them.
Tough luck! And wouldn't you know, Arase had tough luck after he had a fateful fistfight with the Dragon Dojima on a rooftop near the hotel district in Kamurocho. He shouldn't have brought guns to a fistfight with the dragon.
There are some things in life you just can't parry. And let me tell you, Kiryu-san was one of them. That and Nair. And I'm sure Arase found that out not once, but twice.
Absolutely, Mr. Parasite. Now, sadly, Arase and his crew were responsible for the deaths of Kiryu's old buddies, Shinji and Reina, a fact that still tears at the heartstrings even years later. You can just feel that primal rage Kiryu exerts when he realizes he was too late. And you just know he feels responsible since it all ties back to Nishiki himself. Now, the boss fights, depending on the version, are virtually the same with Arase, save of course for the upgrades the Kiwami version got since it was made a decade later. You might find Arase a bit more frustrating in that one since he can heal, and you have to do certain Kiwami moves on him to prevent that healing, coupled with sometimes inconvenient staggering mechanic you get from getting shot in Kiwami. And against the gun boss, it's just not smooth if you haven't visited that game in a while.
Being swarmed by a boss with guns and a wrecking crew isn't fun. However, it gives you more justice to serve out. And I'm sure that Kiryu-san delivered on that. Not once, but twice, for Arase.
Right, because that wouldn't be the last we'd see of Arase. He later reappears in 2009 as a secret boss once you complete all of the Reaper missions in both Kamurocho and Ryukyu. His moveset is closer to his PS2 version and he's a lot quicker, plus at first he'll be supported by another Reaper boss using Majima's moveset. I made a video earlier this year about Kashiwagi and how he tied into the honest living association he created, but there I kept it vague on who the final Reaper boss was, so think of this as a sequel to that video.
Well, a sequel would be nice.
Us Thai guys have to stick together, Tanimura. Now, this other Arase fight is also coupled with his theme from the original returning in a new rendition named End Point, which fits this being the end of the Reaper fights. I also dig how it takes place in the Millennium Tower. Essentially, this fight gives Arase much more character than he ever had in the original. Usually I don't like to say things like that, but this is an exception. Arase may be another guy wanting vengeance on Kiryu for beating him last time, but it's still a personal fight for both sides. Remember, this is a Kiryu who's trying to grow into a new life, even if that means not holding a grudge against the guy who killed two of his old friends. So Arase's story ends here with him vowing a rematch with Kiryu, and he leaves. However, he would actually reappear in 2011 during Dead Souls as an ally for Kiryu. While I haven't experienced Dead Souls yet for myself, it's super neat that Arase's story carries over into such a unique spin-off. Hopefully it gets a new release soon and Arase is given proper closure and the main timeline.
Where was I during 2011? Oh, that's right.
Next, let's talk about a less violent antagonist, that being Mr. Poundmates himself, Gary Buster Holmes. I love this guy, and to be blunt, I'll tell you right now, he's still appearing to this day. But how did we get there with Holmes? Originally a prime combatant and champion of Purgatory in the early 2000s, Gary Buster Holmes first fought Kiryu in 2005 during the 10 billion yen incident, and later in 2006 during the Jingwan Mafia conspiracy. It was during the second appearance where he donned his signature spiky ball fists, known as the GBHG. He wears them with utter pride, and they can even be equipped by Kiryu and Kwami too. Judging by Gary's construction helmet, it's clear that Gary is the big muscle man of Majima construction. It would help in Majima's many battles against the legendary wrestlers doing real estate. Call it the construction wars, if you will. From then, Gary would continue working on building Emerald Hills, but wouldn't be explicitly seen until 2010. Here he got into a fight with Kiryu not out of malice, but because he simply wanted a good old rematch. A much healthier reason than the revenge that Arase wanted. I like the setup here since Kiryu was told by civilians that there was a ghost haunting Emerald Hills, only to find out it was, well, Gary.
Oh, well. Gary Buster Holmes, huh? He was one of the prime combatants of Purgatory during its heyday, and even stuck around for Majima construction once the Mad Dog took over from the Florist. Now, I've dealt with the Florist a couple of times, but I have used Gary's Poundmates company a couple of times underneath an anonymous name. And let me tell you, his business is perfection. It's gotten me out of a few scuffles. Yeah.
Similar to Arase, however, Gary would appear in Dead Souls with his own boot camp that trains civilians on how to use firearms. Honestly, this makes sense for him to do since he already wears camo pants all the time. It's also interesting to see a different side to Gary because he's one of the few Americans in the series. God, I can't wait to play Dead Souls and meet Gary while donning Kiryu's American outfit and even Majima's power outfit. It's kind of funny how that power outfit came back today, if you know what I mean, wink wink. All of these rather brief appearances by the big spiky ball muscle man may seem inconsequential, but I see them as indicative of a man just trying to make his way in another country. Did Holmes simply end up stranded in America after being in the military, or did he just flee to Japan in hopes of a new life? Was he actually in the military as we know it? Maybe Gary used to work with Joshi Kazama back in the day, who knows? What I do know, however, is that he would come back mightier than ever in recent sightings. You see, in 2019, he became a star member of Poundmates, a delivery service of dishing out pain to jobbers from every hive of scum and villainy, kinda like Tanimura mentioned. Gary would then meet Lord Shrub, aka Kasuga Ichiban, and help him in his many heroic adventures around Yokohama, Sotenbori, and even Kamurocho. And that's not all. You see, in 2019, he also became affiliated with some guy running the Joryu clan on the castle's Coliseum. It seemed like it was fate for Gary to return to the Coliseum, now as a playable character. Teaming Gary up with his fellow weirdos like Boss Gondawara and one of the Kamiyama twins is an amazing matchup of cheeky Damassari. And in 2023, we'd find out that Gary even has a daughter named Chitose. I'm so happy that he started a family and it looks like they're back in America. But this time it's Hawaii, and once again the Holmes family is going on adventures with insane heroes. And you betcha that he returns in Pirate Yakuza. Overall, I think that Gary Buster Holmes shows that much like the themes of growth in the series, it's never too late to start again. Out of the 3 suspects in this video, I'd say he definitely had the brightest outcome since his days in Purgatory, and fitting enough, he was able to escape the realm of Purgatory and find a new life abroad. And wouldn't you know it, Gary Buster Holmes ended up creating a boot camp after all.
Oh, well, see if Gary is what you call a working man, going from job to job but staying true to himself, like his big steel balls. Now, if you'll excuse me, I don't really want to talk about Lau Ka Long, but I have dealt with foreign threats before.
Now let's talk about another titan in the room, another shadow from Kiryu's past that dates back to a confrontation from 1993, the Ogre himself, Lau Ka Long. Lau Ka Long, a man who once tortured Kiryu just a few years after the Empty Lot event of 1988, and was one of his first major foes to bring the legend of the Dragon of Dojima to life. Long is the leader of the deadly Snake Flower Triad, and for years had been trying to usurp the Yakuza, and expand his territory in Japan. We learned that his jobbers were torturing and captured Kiryu with needles, and it looked like Mr. Kazi was in trouble until Big Daddy Shintaro Kazuma swooped in to save him. However, the rescue mission would end up damaging Kazama's leg and forcing him to adopt a cane. This injury seems to show just how dangerous Long's triad was, and that this event left a physical mark on Kazuma and a spiritual one on Kiryu.
There we go. It's a window. There's gotta be some way out of here. Still following me, huh? Trying to talk about Lau Ka Long? Well, fine, I'll give you a little something. In fact, I wrote it here in my Revelation notebook. Let's see, Lau Ka Long. That's right. I heard rumors in the underworld that Lau Ka Long is still out there, miraculously surviving that goddamn headshot wound. Now, if that means other evil fucks can do that, then I'm a little concerned for Kiryu-san and my friends.
I find it criminal that none of the live-action adaptations use Lau Ka Long as an easy excuse to have a great fight, because he represents a few different factors as a character. For one, Lau Ka Long ties into Kiryu's early days as a dragon in Dojima. 2, he expands the underworld by showing there's more than just Yakuza and random criminals to deal with. And 3, he's a goddamn badass. Whenever you see Lau Ka Long in a fight, you just know he's gonna come pre-packaged with phases. Now, Lau Ka Long did play a role in the 10 billion yen incident where he worked with the big bald man Shimano, the steel Haruka in exchange for shady advantages, and the big sprawling plot that was unfolding. However, during his fight and remarks, it was clear he saw Shimano and all the Yakuza as mere idiots compared to him, which helps in showing what kind of a bastard Lau Ka Long is. Plus, as a weapons dealer, it makes sense for him to not really care about which Yakuza clan gets the higher edge. He just saw kidnapping Haruka as a real opportunity to fight Kiryu.
Blue-cluing this shit. Now, I believe that Lau Ka Long is just trying to sell weapons under new guise. Now, whatever it is that you know, Mr. TDF, can't be any good, but I'm gonna go ahead and write you a ticket for kidnapping me right here. There you go. And you know what, Mr. TDF? Made you look.
Get a grip, Tanimura! Of course, it's on record that Kiryu pummeled Lau Ka Long in that 2005 fight, and a beatdown that was a long time coming. But of course, that wouldn't be the last we saw of him. After that fight, he did send his legions of the Snake Flower after Kiryu and Date and Haruka in a gigantic car chase. Then in 2006, Kiryu runs into Granny White, who was a mentor to Lau Ka Long, and why he incorporates the White Lotus style into his moveset. It's neat that we get to learn a little more about his backstory, even if it is still vague, but in a series about fistfights, perhaps learning about your foe through their old master is enough. In a way, Granny White is like Long's own Santaro Kamaki. Now, Long himself would return next. Snakes like to crawl away and bite you later, after all. Such was the case in 2009 when Lau Ka Long once again saw the opportunity to strike back at Kiryu by kidnapping Rikia during the Okinawa Resort and Black Monday conspiracy. This time the Snake Flower Triad took to the streets of Kamurocho to harass Kiryu, and I gotta say, it's certainly a long battle. I remember this one being fun, but it certainly felt like it dragged from street to street, like it was plucked out of Streets of Rage. And I love Streets of Rage. I'm only saying that because compared to the Tamashiro office or the Toto Hospital long battles, this Snake Flower one really felt brutal. Maybe I just don't remember the shakeups during the fight like the others, since it wasn't in a confined space, it wasn't in a building. And it was more like that long battle in the streets in Yakuza 0, where Kiryu had to fight and escape the Tojo clan all around Kamurocho. It just sort of blends in as much as your normal street fights. That's just me though. Anyway, the real showdown takes place on the rooftops near Kashiwagi's Honest Living Association castle as Kiryu duels Lau Ka Long once again against the Ogre. It's a fight where you can really use the fenced walls as a way to charge up heat and vicious combos, or just thug it out for like half an hour by blocking. It's up to you. Once the fight ends and it looks like Rikia truly is in danger, we get the big Uncle Joji Kazama, Agent Man, saving the day by disconnecting Lau Ka Long from the server. And you'd think that'd be the end of a man who just got sniped through the head, but not quite. First in 2010, a man from the Snake Flower Triad ends up running into Kiryu and Tanimura, where they then take him to the super medical man Doc Emoto, the legend. You should remember this, Tanimura.
Lau Ka Long, I knew he used to mess with my friends and allies in my home, Little Asia, who would always apparently run deals back in the day before I joined the force. However, after his supposed death in 2009, the Snake Flower Triad just disappeared. But I heard they were having some remnants of their forces acting in Kamurocho in 2016.
And then in 2016, a member of Snake Flower named Jiang appears in 2 side stories where he meets Kiryu. It turns out that the last remnants of Snake Flower have been trying to bomb the South Triad, which is really interesting as we get to see 2 triads beefing with each other. Kamurocho just can't catch a break, huh? The current boss of Snake Flower at the time was Sun, and throughout these 2 sub-stories you get to see Kiryu confronting Zhang and Sun, which culminates in Snake Flower disbanding for the time being, apparently. This batch of sub-stories was a real treat, and coupled with the ghost photos of Lau Ka Long, it really feels like so much time has passed during Kiryu's legacy. And in the same game where the Jingwan Mafia return, it was cool to see the Snake Flower Triad once again, only this time, they barely have enough forces to, chase you on the highway with a bunch of cars. Thank goodness. Then in 2019, it turns out that those ghost photos of Lau Ka Long must have been some prank from the afterlife. Or Lau Ka Long finally got out of his coma in 2017 or 2018, just spitballing on my end. But it would line up with him getting back on his feet and going under the name Lau Ka Long, and selling weapons in the sewers of Yokohama. The fact that he returned to Yokohama, where Snake Flower was originally established in Japan and is why they worked with Hamazaki back in 2009, is very telling. It makes you wonder if this is where Long was being held until he miraculously recovered. However, the mighty have fallen and it seems that Lau Ka Long is no longer with Snake Flower, and he's trying to hide from the Yakuza apparently. And the fact that he's just a bridge away from Kashiwagi and the Bar District is hilarious. In 2019, he can appear as a pound mate for Ichiban, and of course sell him weapons once he passes his test. I guess Long and Kiryu have the same mindset on barely changing your name when hiding. Alright, here's the moment we've been waiting for. In 2023, the gods of hell yeah blessed us and we got to witness Kiryu Kazuma have a rematch of Lau Ka Long. Only under their respective aliases of Taichi Suzuki and Lau Ka Long. What can I say? We got to hear Ogre has returned, blast again as Kiryu and his new friends battle Long. And of course, this fight comes with his signature phases where he takes different weapons and he uses his fists eventually. Fan service done right. And this brings me to a more poignant ending. You see, I like the badass things in life, but I also love the sincere things. Here we got some closure to the feud between Kiryu and Long that's been going on since 1993, which means that 30 years later in 2023, they're finally able to bury the hatchet. The best part about this is they both knew who the other guy was, so much so that simply reappearing in their lives meant it was instantly time to fight. And yet, through one final fight and an exchange about keeping things quote-unquote professional, so to speak, they were able to move on. Both know the truth, and yet there's some kind of mutual respect between warriors. Both understand they're just trying to survive as old guys in a world that keeps trying to leave them behind. I've talked about the Kashiwagi story in a previous video, and in that I talked about how sometimes seeing a ghost can be a form of closure. I believe the same sentiment applies here to Lau Ka Long, where Kiryu and someone from his past decide to keep up the facade of having new identities, but something in that encounter is enough to bring closure. And sure, the door may be open to a better future, but as of right now, you may never get that particular closure you had in mind, and perhaps it's better to make light of whichever small one you get. And that form of small closure seems to be a running theme with the three bosses I've discussed in today's video. Arase, Gary, and Long have all reappeared after their first appearance for a rematch or two, and they're all in a less hostile place than they were before, at least after a while in another fight. The fact that we've reached a point where they can end a fight with Kiryu with a talk instead of either bloodshed or a straight up knockout is fascinating. And it shows really how far these guys have come in their hidden stories. These three may have had hidden stories you have to seek out for yourself in the open sandbox, and yet it makes me take a different look at how time changes. None of these three were given any disservice in their subsequent appearances. Instead, we got to see how these guys from the underworld were trying to live their lives, even if that meant letting go of past grudges. And, I just hope that whenever we return the Kenrocho again in a future title, that they finally rebuild Little Asia after it burnt down.
You're telling me that Little Asia burnt down? My god, where have I been? Holy fuck.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for more episodes of the Tanimura Files. I'm not done finding him. Until next time, check out my playlist featuring several Like a Dragon character analysis and topics over gameplay features. You'll find nothing else like it on YouTube. Take care, and go treat yourself.